Well, hi everybody. Welcome to the MenoLounge. I'm Julie Gordon-White, CEO of MenoWell, Menopause Energy and Protein Bars. And I missed you guys last week. Truth be told, I'm just going to spill the tea. It has been a challenging start this year for us from the logistics point of view. So thanks to everybody. Hey, Jamie, for working with us as we are finally going to be back in stock with our beloved double chocolate brownie. In fact, we're having a pre-sale this weekend. So thanks everyone for waiting. It's been nuts. I don't know what's happening, but we're getting there. So I'm super excited to bring our guest up today because we often hear from all our favorite docs, and through one of our favorite docs, I learned about Suzanne. So let me bring her up here. I just saw you here. We're going to have a discussion from the point of Jamie, I think you're the one who connected us. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Here she comes, I think.
Hello, Julie.
How are you? I'm always too
I'm
close here.
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me to be on here.
Oh, I'm so glad. I was just sharing that we talk to docs all the time about perimenopause and the transition and all the things, but we don't always get the nurse point of view. And, nurses, I don't need to tell you this, are the ones who are usually closest to the patient,
Right.
spend the most time and all of that. So I'm really excited about it. I think it's a different kind of conversation. So first, let's just jump in. Tell us, you are a nurse coach.
hmm
What does that mean and how did you get
Yeah.
there?
So, well, back it up a little bit. I've been a nurse for over 26 years, and it's just been, I think as a nurse, you can work in a variety of different areas in healthcare, and that's the flexibility and the joy of being a nurse. I've really worked in a lot of different areas. Basically, as my kids kind of grew up, like what can I kind of adjust my schedule to be a really awesome mom to them. But just within right after the pandemic, I feel like a lot of us were looking at like, what do we do now? Luckily, I did not work bedside. I did not work in the ICU during the pandemic, which I used to work in the intensive care unit for many years, but I was in a different position at the time. And one of my friends had mentioned to me, she goes, we should look into becoming a board certified nurse coach. And I'm like, I have no clue what it
What's
was.
that?
And at first
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't want to coach nurses. That's not what I want to do. And she's like, no, no, no. This is why we went into nursing. This is looking at the whole patient and really looking at why they're having issues with, whatever disease process, and really helping them with prevention and helping them going through a lot of different things to be able to, help them through their health journey. And so I was just like, oh, that sounds so interesting. And so I became a board certified nurse coach almost 4 years ago, and just started coaching women going through different transitions in their life. And it was fun. But I kept hearing this common theme that they would talk to me about. And they were like, I feel like my hormones are off. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to tuck that away, in the back of my mind, like, okay, let me dive into that a little bit more and let me understand that. And during that time frame, I also took a functional medicine course for nurses so I can kind of understand root causes. And so basically, I'm looking at the whole patient, not just their symptoms, not just their disease, not just their diagnosis that they have. I look at the whole person of like body, mind, and spirit, and really, dive into that. And then I started my own perimenopausal journey a little over about a year, 18 months ago. And it just like now I'm focused on working with women going through perimenopause and menopause. So.
I love that. Always, our own experience really calls us to serve. And so when you lean in, and especially being a caring person as a nurse, I can only imagine the magical work you're doing with your clients now. And so I should say, I don't think I said your whole name,
Oh,
right? I was so excited to see you. So Suzanne Greiner, and let's just tell if people are just hopping in and out, what's the best way that they can find you? And then we're going to talk about your framework and pillars.
yeah. So I live in Colorado. I'm in the Denver, Colorado area. But you best can see me, find me on Instagram here. But I also have a website, SuzanneGreinerCoaching.com, that you can really find out a lot of the services and different opportunities that I offer. I do see patients across the country, and then also like I do a lot of in-person events locally here in the Denver area as well as online. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you have an event coming up.
We just had it.
Oh, you just had it already?
Yes, we just had it
already
on
come and
Saturday.
gone? That's right.
It was so good. Yeah, it was amazing.
Oh, good.
So.
All right. We'll talk about some of the takeaways. Look at, it's Sally Bartlett said, Suzanne's the best. So you have a fan. You have a fan. Let's talk about, so what do you think the point of view, how is it different between a doctor and a nurse, especially around the perimenopause conversation?
Yeah.
And this is, we're not shaming any doctors here. We love our docs,
shaming,
right? But,
and this is just our healthcare system as a whole right now. Unfortunately, doctors don't have enough time to, like, if they are taking insurance, they don't have enough time to really dive in deep with their patients. And I know that there's a lot of physicians that want to, they just don't have the time to, because they have to see so many patients in a day. So they, like, they're like in and out. Like, my personal story, my PCP basically told me, I have 20 minutes to spend with you. We can either talk to you about your yearly appointment or your perimenopause, but I don't have time to talk to you about both. And, like, in reality, I know, like, you have a 20-minute appointment, but when you go through perimenopause and menopause, like, there's a lot of stuff, like, what's my body doing? What are my options for, do I take HRT or not? Like, what are some lifestyle changes I need to make? As a nurse, I'm able to dive in deeper with those patients and really help them, let's become educated about what's truly gone on with your body. And I can't prescribe, so I can tell them, like, teach them about the different hormones that are happening in your body and the fluctuations. But I also I have the time and effort to be able to talk to them about the lifestyle changes that they need to make. But then also the ones that work with me, we're able to create a plan that's their priority of what they can do to really navigate perimenopause and menopause, because sometimes it can be a little tricky. Like, it's not a cookie cutter experience. It's like more like
size fits all.
right. It's a thumbprint. It's a thumbprint for your whole health. Like, it's so different. Like, you have different things going on with your body, different stresses, different things. And so, yeah, so it's like, as a nurse, you can kind of really have the time to really take a look at that whole patient.
I love that you said thumbprint. I haven't heard anybody else call it that. And wow, you're such a awesome co-pilot for a woman going through this, because she can go deep with you, with a nurse coach in this time, and go deep and be prepared and get real medical evidence-based answers, and then go to her doctor for fulfillment if that's what she decides to do.
That's what I do. I refer a lot of my clients out to providers that need, like, the HRT conversation, or, like, it gets to a point where, like, or they'll share their labs with me. I'm like, oh yeah, let's talk to your doctor about this. And I help them advocate for their own health and well-being too. So that's another thing. I'd be like, okay, talk to them about this and talk to them about that. So it's kind of like this whole approach where, like, I'm helping those clients that really advocate for their health ask the right questions to get what they need when they're in with the providers. So.
Yeah, that's so awesome, especially honing in on the right questions, because if you are not sure what to ask and you go in and you start, from way over here, and you only have a certain amount of time, then you want to make sure you're focused on the right things. And so working with you and a nurse coach, you can help women get really dialed in and focused on.
Absolutely.
And plus, they're probably already feeling pretty confident when they get there, which is really nice.
Yeah.
I love that you said lifestyle approach too, because we know even if you're on hormone replacement, we cannot avoid the lifestyle changes that really make the journey easier and better. Really.
Right. Well, and they feel so much better on HRT. They're like, oh, like, and then a few months later, they start coming back like, oh yeah, I need to start now focusing, now that I feel better.
Right.
Like, now I have the energy to focus on exercising. Or they recognize that nutrition is so important. Like, that, I always talk about that being the foundation of your menopause, perimenopause journey, is because if you're, like, getting, into the science of things, if your cells are not working efficiently with the right nutrients, like, it's just the catalyst for everything else. So I really focus on the nutrition as the foundation, exercise, sleep, stress. And then I also have the other component, community and connection, which I feel like so many women during this time frame, we self-isolate. But it's so important that we have that community and connection with other women maybe going through this, or maybe just not even going through this. But yeah, I recognized, actually a year ago, I was on a retreat in Costa Rica, and I recognized that I was making perimenopause like more of my identity. And I realized, I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot allow perimenopause to become my identity. Because like everyone in the grocery store
Unless
knew
it's
I was going through.
empowering identity, right?
Right,
Then if
right,
it's
yeah,
positive,
that's
keep
different.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But it's like everyone, like I would complain about it, and everyone, the strangers in the nursing in the grocery store knew I was going through perimenopause. Like that was, because I just felt miserable, and
Oh,
I
here
was
comes
allowing.
Suzanne. She's going to talk about perimenopause again.
That's
They
why I
say
still
the
feel like.
same thing to me, but I'm like, hey, you want a bar?
I know, exactly. But it's like it was becoming my identity in a negative way, and then instead of like looking at it as like this is just a part of my life, and it's a journey that I'm going through, not like the doom and gloom of everything. So yeah, so that was like a fun thing to learn, a year ago.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's what a journey is about, right?
Mm-hmm.
But going back to what you said about nutrition, of
Mm-hmm.
course, we're so aligned with that
Yes.
because I say to women that, nutrition is something we can actually control during this time because it can feel so out of control. I don't know what to do here, there, but nutrition, we can control what we put in our bodies, what we eat and how we eat. So I feel like it's one of the biggest levers that we have. So I'm glad that you are with me on that.
I agree. I didn't like one of my symptoms of perimenopause, I gained about 25 pounds, and I'm like, I'm not eating differently. I'm exercising how I normally do. And then all of a sudden I had this weight gain. I was like, what is going on with me? And like, I'm like thinking what's, with all these, as a nurse brain, I'm like, okay, what disease do I have? Kind of thing. But I had to set my ego aside, and I really had to do a lot of research into what does my body need during this time frame, because it's different once you hit perimenopause. I feel like you have to focus on different things. And I realized my body was becoming more insulin resistant. And I started slowly seeing the rise of my hemoglobin A1C over the past few years. And I was actually pre-diabetic a year ago. And so I'm like, okay, I have to really prioritize protein and fiber, and then making sure that anytime I eat a carbohydrate, because I'm not afraid to eat carbs. Like I think carbs are like
we need carbs for energy. We don't need to be afraid of carbs, right?
Yeah. But anytime I ate a carb, I made sure that I was eating a healthy fat, a protein or fiber with that carbohydrate so that my blood glucose wasn't spiking. It was just a nice, even longer, level that kept me fuller longer. And that helped me lose about 15 to 20 pounds of that 25-pound weight gain. So it does work over time. After I was also on HRT, so that kind of, I think,
that helps
the chaos.
everything across the board. But even with HRT, if we don't make those nutrition changes, and like you said, I haven't changed the way I've been eating, but the way we were eating before perimenopause doesn't serve us anymore, right? All those ultra processed foods and not having higher protein and higher fiber and good healthy fats, it changes. Our bodies change with what we need. And skipping the alcohol or minimizing the alcohol, as Dr. Mary Claire likes to say, okay, well, you can choose sleep. Do you want this glass of wine or do you want to sleep tonight? Like, what do you want to do?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
even though we weren't maybe doing something horrible, eating horribly before, we're just not eating in a way that optimizes how our bodies are now. So
absolutely. And I really, and this is what I kind of talk to my clients about, is like during perimenopause, like your body is changing and evolving, and it's giving you signs and signals like, hey, I'm working overtime. I'm trying to get you back to homeostasis. And so I'm doing all these things because it's like, oh, all of a sudden you create more visceral fat because your estrogens may be a little bit lower. And so it's your body's trying to compensate by bringing it back into homeostasis. So it's always trying to work with you. So it's like, I think we look at weight gain during perimenopause. It's one of those time frames that we're like, oh my gosh, like why is my body doing this to me? But really, when we look at it from the perspective of your body's always trying to get you back into homeostasis, it helps you realize like your body's for you and working with you. It's giving you signals. You just have to slow down and listen to those signals.
I love that. That's such a good call out because we do think we feel betrayed by our bodies versus the body's just always trying to survive. That's why if you eat too few calories, it's like, whoop, all right, we're going to hang on to everything, right? So always homeostasis, back to that balance, back to what it feels is safe to survive.
Yep.
It's in charge. It is in
Yes.
charge. We think we're in
Whether we
charge. No, the
whether we
body.
like it or not.
Right. It's in charge. Natasha from Fashionality says this sounds like her peri
Yeah.
experience. So not
It's
alone.
very like the more women I speak to, it is very common. And it's just like one of those things that you're just like, oh my gosh, you know, you feel like alone or you're like shame that you're going through this, but there's so many women that have similar
Women.
stories. So
Right. We're
yeah.
all together in
Mm-hmm.
this. It might be a little bit different, but we're still all together
Yes.
going through the journey. So you have a framework that you take your clients through, and I know it's got 6 pillars,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought we could maybe talk about
Oh
3 of
yeah.
them because if they want
Yes.
the rest, they have to work
Yes.
with you. But maybe just talking about the first one, which is physical
Mhm.
well-being. So
Right.
I know we talked about nutrition. What are your
Right.
thoughts
So the
further on that?
physical well-being is one of those, it's super important, especially during perimenopause, because we lose that muscle mass. And so I think we've probably all heard like strength training is super important. But I really kind of, I have clients that may have never worked like, you know, have never like strength trained before. Maybe they've been cardio queens. And it's just like, how can we incorporate it in a different way that we are looking more at functionality of your fitness versus like, you know, quick, let's lose 20 pounds, you know, 20 pounds doing cardio kind of stuff like that is shifting. And I think for Gen Xers and older millennials, we've been like taught like skinny is better. And what really is stronger because I live in Denver, so I love hiking and I like it finally clicked for me. The longevity piece of this is so super important with exercise. We want to look at, you know, what does your 85-year-old body going to thank you for? And, you know, when you turn 85, what are they going to thank you for doing
Right.
today to be hiking a mountain or whatever, you know, working, you know, being with your grandkids, playing on the floor with them versus laying like in a nursing home or laying, you're having so many like health complications. So it's like what, like you have that control, a little bit of that control by, you know, that doing more of that functional exercising and strength training is a huge component of that. So
Absolutely. I'm a huge. I had a PR yesterday of 20-pound dumbbells for my shoulder press.
oh
I was so
god.
excited. Like, you know, little bits of progress. And, you know, I started with my 8 pounds
Yeah.
and just worked my way up. And it wasn't that fast. It was actually faster than my
Right.
mindset allowed it to be. You know, I could have gone to 20 sooner, but I was like, 20s, like, I don't know. But it's so important that we get
Mm-hmm.
strong and we focus on, I love what you're saying, is that we make decisions today for our
Mm-hmm.
future self,
Right.
always for that future self. And then we get to enjoy the benefits
Right.
of our today decisions along the way, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So it's
And
not
that,
like it's
yeah.
all deferred. I'm not
Right.
about
Right.
deferring, right?
Right.
But you know, we
Exactly.
make them today for the future and enjoy the journey getting there. So much better. I love that. Yes to lifting weights. And if you're having the, you know, one of those feelings like, heavy, just start where you are. Start where
Right.
you are. Don't judge yourself. Don't compare to anybody else. Because my 20 is somebody else's
Right.
50, is your 5, you know. So
Exactly. And PR is
do you.
personal, not someone
Right.
else's. So I think that's so
That's what the
important to
P
know.
stands for.
Exactly.
Personal.
I know. And
Right.
it's so easy to compare our journey with others. And so it's like really focusing on what you want. And I think it's so important where we can see, compare our friends or compare someone else's journey. And we're like, well, they're doing that, but I'm not there yet. And like, then you have that negative self-talk. And so it's like, no, no, no. Let's
Yeah.
really focus on what your goals are.
Yeah. Really good. Let's go to your pillar of emotional
Mm.
well-being.
Yes. This is one that I feel as though we don't talk about enough. And we don't really evaluate because I think the emotional side, we kind of stuff things down. And maybe, I mean, you know, we have like, we can really dive into big T trauma and little T trauma, but even for people that have had little T trauma, we're like, oh, we dismiss it. And we're like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Like, and just really
Explain
understand,
little T
oh,
trauma, the
so
definition versus
yeah.
big and little.
So big T trauma is like we've had something major happen in our lives. Like maybe our parents went through a divorce, or maybe you had a really bad experience in your life, like a, you know, very close death, or whatever that was super traumatic for you, either in childhood, teenage, adulthood, whatever. We kind of know that, that can cause a lot of, pain and grief and whatever else. But the little T trauma could be like maybe someone said something bad to you in elementary school, but you've held that in your head. Me personally, I'll be vulnerable and tell you that one of my, I guess, little T trauma that I've been unpacking lately is my older sister. She was involved in a really bad car accident. She was hit by a drunk driver my senior year of high school. And all the focus had been on her and like her well-being. And that we needed to at that moment. But I'm just now understanding, like, there's some things that I've been unpacking lately that I never really unpacked from my experience from me going through that as a teenager. So I would say that's maybe medium trauma, but like the little T trauma could be the other little things that, maybe someone said something bad to you or something else minor happened to you and you don't really think about it, but then it causes you to react differently to future events. So it really can kind of add up sometimes. But the emotional component is super important because it really helps us navigate, how we handle things or handle our stress sometimes. And really, how do we navigate that? Do we stuff our feelings away or do we address them? So that I think is so important. And I noticed that a lot in healthcare when I worked with patients in healthcare, like we would be, especially in the ICU, we would be so focused on, that particular disease process that they had that brought them into the ICU. But then if we back it up a little bit more, what initially caused that disease? I worked in cardiac care for a while. Like, what kind of stressors did they have that went, undiagnosed or are not going to, are not helping them in that moment, and they go back to that same stressor, they're going to be coming back into the hospital. So we really need to address that emotional component as well.
So important. And you just remind me, this is Heart Health Month.
Yes.
I'm working with American Heart, and especially with heart disease, the number one killer of women. And it's those small T traumas, or maybe a large T, that we stuff down all that ongoing stress that can create those cardiac events, like those small heart attacks and strokes.
And I think that women, we carry a lot, like, especially if we're working full time and we have kiddos, like we carry a lot of that stress of like the day-to-day operations of what's going on in your world. And it's just like, it adds up. And I think for women, especially going through perimenopause and menopause, and also like the sandwich generation, our parents are aging, our kids are getting older, like that's a whole big thing that women kind of carry on and trying to navigate that all.
We normalize it, so we don't even notice that we feel stress anymore because we're numb to it, because we've just managed it so long. I remember the first time I went a month with no added sugar, no sugar, period. You get the flu, you get that detox flu, from your body after about 4 days. You feel horrible because I was so used to having sugar in my body. I didn't notice it at all until it went away, and it got really upset, but I had no idea, like, wow, I had that level of probably inflammation in my body that I had no way of knowing until I stopped, because I was so used to it, used to eating that way, and how in midlife, perimenopause, we're just used to operating at a high level of stress, but we're normalizing it. So we just, I hate to say it, keep calm and carry on, which is a sticker I have right over there.
Well, and then also because of fluctuation of our hormones, of progesterone and estrogen, like our stress resilience is so much lower than what we had been used to. And so you add this extra stress on top of that, stress resilience that's not, coping very well. And also cortisol is one of those when cortisol is really high, it actually decreases our progesterone, which is like, that's what we don't want, in perimenopause and menopause. But so it's just like one of those things you really have to like navigate, like, what is going on stressful or stress wise in your life. So
really good. Very rich conversation. All right, let's go to the third one I wrote down of your pillars, which is growth and evolution, which is one of my favorites, because this is why I think perimenopause, menopause, postmenopausal time is so empowering, and we can choose to grow through it. I hope I'm not saying your whole thing. Grow through it and evolve through it, and not be stuck. So This is what I love about it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pass
Yeah.
it to you.
Well,
What do you share?
yeah, and I think the growth and the evolution is super, super important because we can stay stagnant and complain and like allow perimenopause or menopause become our identity, kind of like I alluded to before, or we can choose to grow through it. And perimenopause and menopause does not need to be a negative thing that happens to you. It could be this thing where like, oh my gosh, I finally can create better boundaries in my life. I can finally like do things, and you're looking at more of the positive, I don't want to say positive, but
Yeah.
the growth from going through perimenopause and menopause, and at when you're in the middle of it, it's like the last thing you want to think of. But it's like, if you know that you're going to grow and evolve, if you have like that finish line of like, this is what I want my perimenopause and menopause journey to look like, and you have that control over it, it helps you to grow through all the stuff. And I think it's super important that, yes, we have the fluctuations in our hormones. Yes, we need to do those little lifestyle changes, but then also like, what is it that you want your perimenopause menopause journey to look like? Because
Mm.
I had to take a step back for myself and be like, I can't be telling everyone in the grocery store that are complete strangers that know that I'm going through perimenopause and menopause. And I get to have a choice to enjoy this journey instead of like being miserable about it. So it's like that choice to
Mm.
grow continuously throughout this. And so, yeah, it can be tough some days. It's not sunshine and roses every single day, but there's moments that you're just like, okay, like, yes, I'm going through this and it sucks right now, but what action steps can I move forward to where I want to go? And that's where I think it's super important to have that reality check within yourself. Like, all right, yes, this sucks today. And yes, I feel like crap today, but like, okay, what action steps what maybe one little action step I can take to feel better tomorrow? And you do that and you act on that. So,
Really good. Really, really good. And I like to remind women that it's the meaning that we give to things. So
yeah.
whether it's the meaning we give to words like
Mm-hmm.
perimenopause, or the meaning that we give to an experience like I can't sleep.
Yeah.
So what is a more empowering, better, and more enjoyable meaning we can give to the exact same experience? I
Right.
can't sleep. Okay, well, now I can just lay here and meditate for a little bit or have a few
Mm-hmm.
minutes for gratitude that I
Right.
didn't have before. Those are things that we can do when we give something that could feel negative
Mm-hmm.
a different meaning. It
Right.
just changes everything. It's just we need to remember to do it, right? Because in
Right.
the moment you're
Yeah.
just like, oh.
It's almost like, how can I fall to sleep better? And then your brain is then trying to find that solution.
Yeah.
So I think when you're asking yourself that question, your brain is always wanting to help you find that solution to, figure that out. So like, even like if you're like, I feel like crap, but like, how can I feel better tomorrow? Or how can I feel better? I do think just that turns the table, like you're in control and you're empowered by that, by that statement more than before. So.
Then we go back to your first pillar of physical well-being and you just go outside. That's
Yes.
really solves most breathing,
That is so true.
deep breaths, and going outside for a little quick
Yes.
walk around your block. And you're in Colorado, so
Yeah.
I know your air is stunning. My daughter lives in Colorado. I love it, love it, love it. So going outside in nature is a really quick
Yes.
reminder, or breathing right where you are if you can't go outside.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
those help get us on track when we think,
Yeah.
I'm really not enjoying this whole thing. Forget the growth. That's a bunch of crap, right?
I know. And like, it's just 20 minutes outside, fresh air. It does wonders. Like,
It
it is
does.
truly, it's helped shifted my, demeanor, or my attitude sometimes is like, oh, like this was super stressful. I need to go for a walk. I'm like, I need to clear my
Just
head. And it does so well.
right.
So,
Really quick. I know all I need is 5 minutes. If I can just
yeah.
go out on my deck for a minute
Oh,
sometimes.
yeah.
Take a
Exactly.
break.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's just run through. I know you might have some tips. We've talked about so many things. We may have shared the tips that you may have brought today, but if there's anything you'd like to share to help women navigate from this nurse's point of view, which I think
Mhm.
is so golden. I've never had anyone on who is a nurse, because you got like all the best goodness of a doctor, but you have more time, more intuition, and
Mhm.
you've been through it. I think it's so amazing. So what
Yeah.
tips might you want
Well,
to share?
I think often, and you brought up the intuition right there. Like, that was what I was going to say. I think often women during this time frame of their life, they have been dismissed by their symptoms, or they had something else happen to them, or maybe they've been told, oh, you're acting crazy. And so as women, we are very intuitive beings. But when we continue to hear that narrative, that we start to distrust like our intuition. And I think it's very, very important for women to slow down. Our gut and our heart, they're always telling us what we need to do. For me personally, like going through perimenopause, I like knew in my gut this was perimenopause, but it took me about 6 months to actually, go and
Even
see
as a
my provider
nurse, right?
as a nurse. Yeah.
Yeah.
And and I was just like, I'm like, deep down, I knew it was there, but I was like, oh no, I'm sure there's something else. And I dismissed my own symptoms and I dismissed what I was going through. But when I slowed down and had that honest conversation with myself, it's like, you're going through perimenopause. And it was just like trusting that intuition of what's going on, because sometimes our head gets in the way and tucks us out of it. So just really like lean in to listen to your gut and your heart. Because sometimes either, some people may be more of that gut intuition, some may be that more of that heart intuition. So really just lean into how you're feeling in that moment and slow down. Like meditation is so good to like slow down and really like have that honest conversation with yourself. But I think it's so important. But
Yeah, really good.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
were you going to say something else? Go
Oh,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think too, like you have that community and connection. Like we kind of talked about it before, but I think knowing that there's people out there that want to help you and you don't have to do it alone, because I felt like I was, and then it can be very overwhelming. I feel like there's a lot of noise that can be in the space. Like I got to do this, got to do that. It can be overwhelming. Like, what do I do first?
Right.
And it's just like, slow down and just like, okay, what is my top priority? Maybe your nutrition is good. So let's start with like, how's your exercise, and be honest with yourself and really take it slow. Like you don't have to do everything. You don't have to climb a mountain in like 2 hours. Like you can like slow down and just take it little by little. And before you know it, a year can be completely different for you.
Yeah.
So
That's so good. I love reminding women to focus on the thing that's bothering
yep,
them the most,
yep,
because there's all the things, right?
yep,
All the things, but there's going to be one or two that are really making your experience
yeah,
less than positive,
right,
whether that is you don't feel comfortable in your pants anymore, or you
yep,
can't sleep, or those hot flashes are just really wreaking havoc, like whatever
yeah,
those things are. And we not try to fix everything all at the same time.
right,
It can be really hard.
yeah.
So I love what you're saying. All right, what else you got tucked in there in your bag of tricks?
I think too, it's just I just can't, like, I keep going back to like a year ago during this time frame of like just being so overwhelmed. And it is a journey that we are going through, and we don't have to have it all figured out. Like some of my clients, I will take them, like I'm like, obviously their hormones are really out of like all over the
Way
place,
out of
and I
whack. Yeah.
offer them like, you need to go get the hormones checked first and like really focus on those, and we can still work on other things. But yeah, just that, like knowing there are resources around you, and just understanding like what is very viable for what you need in that moment. But yeah,
Really
so
good. Uh, all right, anything else? You're just like the fountain
I'm
of
sure there's
goodness over
probably,
there.
I'm sure there's more. I could talk a little bit about our event that we had here in
Yeah,
Denver this past weekend.
give us the takeaways on that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the biggest, I think it was amazing. You guys had donated some bars to the event, so that was so thankful for that. But it was, we had 5 speakers come and talk about what was going on with their body, the hormones, HRT, gut health changes, lifestyle changes, the emotional side of things. And they were all super stellar. It was like that holistic viewpoint of looking at holistically at perimenopause and menopause. But women left and they were like, this is what I needed. Now I'm ready for my next
Mm-hmm.
steps. Like I needed to understand what was going on with my body. I needed to understand what my options are. And now it's like clarity of what my next step is. And so I felt like really amazing putting this on, because I had the reason why I put it on was that we had some screenings for the M Factor film here in the Denver area. And a lot of women that came to those were like, what do we do next? Like, we're so excited. Now we
Like,
know this, but what do we do next?
yeah.
And so this event spawned from having those screenings here in Denver. And I thought that was great awareness and great conversation starters. for perimenopause and menopause. And so this was kind of like that next step, like, okay, now these are the steps that you can do to really improve your life. So we just had it here in Denver, and we're going to do another one in September. So we're going to make it a semi-annual event. Like we had sponsors and vendors, and we had women just, doing things, and we had yoga and like so many fun activities. So it was a good day. So
I'm so glad. Well,
yeah.
you didn't record it this last time, right?
No, we were trying to, and we're like, okay, how do we, like, we're like the girls that have been helping me plan this, I'm like, I would love to have this recorded, but we're like, how do we do this?
Right. So that you
Next
can have that
time.
as a goal for September. I know
That is our next one.
it adds a whole other layer of
Yeah.
everything, but it's fun to have for later on. So
yeah, absolutely.
really good. Thank you, Sally. She said yum. I'm thinking she was talking maybe about the event or the bars or both. I'm not sure, but it's probably both. Yeah.
She was actually one of the speakers at the event. So she talked a lot about like just the emotional regulation during perimenopause and menopause, which is super powerful, because we often have that critical voice and how we can have that compassionate voice show up. So yes, she was one of our speakers. So she was wonderful.
Love it. Well, maybe we'll have to have Sally on the MenoLounge then. So really, let's just close with, as a nurse coach, what do you want to tell? What do you tell your clients? I want to keep saying patient, but clients, about how to connect with their doctor, because once you've helped them, they still have to go to their doctor, or if they don't have the benefit of working with you, they still need to work with their doctor. Right. And there's such a big disconnect there. And I bet you have just something that you can share to help women connect with their doctor better in this conversation.
Yeah, a lot of it is, number one, finding the right provider to listen to you. You don't have to stay with your provider if you don't feel comfortable talking to your provider, or they have dismissed you. But there's different like ways to talk about advocating for yourself. Maybe like having a conversation with them of saying, hey, I'm feeling as though you're rushed during this appointment. Is there a better time for me to have, do I need to come back and talk about this in more, detail with you? Or is there someone else I could be talking to? So really you're taking that lead in your healthcare and not being like that person in the backseat for your healthcare. Or maybe it's like, if you were in my shoes, if it was a woman, or if it was like a male provider, if your wife or your daughter or whoever was in similar shoes that I am, what else would you suggest, or what else would you do? So it gives them more of that advocacy of really helping them throughout this journey. I think it's sometimes we often think that we take the back seat to our healthcare, but really we need to be in that front seat side by side with that provider. And if you're not feeling that connection with your provider, see what you can do to find another provider that maybe is more trained in perimenopause and menopause. And I think that's super important for us to know that, there's other resources out there for us.
I love that. That's really great. So get in the front seat. Just because you're talking to your doctor, you don't need to be in the back seat. It's okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have so many social norms around interacting with our doctors, and
that's so true.
And then you get to midlife and perimenopause, and you're like, you got to throw that out the door.
Right.
You're still respectful, but you got to be your own advocate. So I love what you're saying. That's a wonderful approach. Okay, well, wow, we can always go on and on. Hey, what does MenoWell mean to you as a phrase?
I feel like that is just like looking at the wellness of going through perimenopause and menopause, because I feel like we're looking, and I kind of like, again, I feel like we are looking at the wellness versus like, oh, like we're going through perimenopause, menopause. But no, there's like so many, good things that can come from this, and also looking at how well your like future life is going to be like. So wellness is key. Wellness is prevention. And so I think it's super important that we really look at it from that standpoint of like moving forward in the well-being of our life.
I love it. And I'm glad well-being is in your framework too, because I know that you really believe that.
Yes.
and come from your heart on that. Jennifer says the doctor's admin is key.
Yes.
Make friends with the admin for sure.
I often tell my clients, like, if you're still trying to, like, if they don't live where I can refer some providers to them, I'm like, ask the front desk if they, like, does this provider, do like, are they trained in, hormone therapy or perimenopause, menopause care? Because that's like saves a lot of
Yeah.
time. So
She's probably perimenopausal anyway. She would know.
exactly. So
I love it. Okay, Suzanne, where can women find you again to learn about your coaching programs? I know you have one-to-one coaching, you have group
yep.
coaching, you have a 10-step thing.
Yeah, and I do a monthly membership too. It's kind of like an introductory into if you're like not ready for like the bigger coaching programs or anything like that. I do a monthly membership. It's like $30 a month where we like have a topic for the month. So actually February is, heart, month. And so we're going to talk about the cardiovascular changes that happen during perimenopause and menopause. And so I do kind of like a podcast style of like, this is, educational component to what's going on with your body. And then it's that group setting at the end of the month that we get together in that community call that we go there, like, how was your month? Like, how are you dealing with this? And so it's just that community support that we have. So I have that. You can go to my website, which is Suzanne Greiner coaching.com, and that can give you some more information on that. And
Spell Greiner.
Greiner, and it's actually Suzanne, Suzanne, Greiner is Greiner.
Yeah.
So. And then for anyone that wants to, I do have a coupon code if they're interested in the membership. If they put in MenoWell into the coupon code, they get half off for the month. So
Wow.
so yeah.
Okay. Everybody head straight over there. And if you're watching the recording, get over there before the end of February because you want to know all things about heart health. If nothing else, it's worth $15 to go deep with this amazing nurse coach, Suzanne here, because heart health is everything. We are so proactive on breast cancer as we should be, thank goodness. But we do not give enough attention to our heart health. And that is the thing that takes us out.
Right.
So,
and I've been an old cardiac nurse for years. And so like that's near and dear to me, that women, they come in for chest pain. It's so differently than what men come in for chest pain
heart
for.
Attacks,
so
stroke presents differently, and we don't know the difference. And just there's so many. And then women have heart attacks and don't even know they've had a heart attack.
Right.
So many things. So see, it's worth $15. Hop in, and then you just stay for all the rest of the goodness after that. So. Awesome. I'm so really, just so honored to know you. I love what you're doing.
Thank you.
I think you're just meeting women where they are because many women don't have access to a perimenopause trained doctor, and their own doctor doesn't know what the heck or is nervous or whatever, or just not enough time. So to be able to have you from a medically evidence-based coaching support person, wow. Where were you for me 9 years ago? I thought I was going crazy. So good.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for being here. I hope to have you on more and
have
you hang around the MenoWell community. More to come.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie. This was such a pleasure. So
all right. To be continued. Be well, everyone. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.